This morning, the smoke from LyTuCam's kitchen was nowhere to be seen. The door remained half open, and her small bamboo house stood quietly amidst the mist, as if something inside had come to a sudden stop. The woman who had once faced every storm alone, the one whose strength had carried her through countless hardships, has now fallen, brought down by a fever in the cold, lingering rain. Little Shoei sits by her side, calling softly, but no answer comes. Outside, raindrops tap gently on the thatched roof, blending with the frightened heartbeat of a child left in the silence of the mountains. Will Lytucam survive this time, when all that surrounds her is the chill of the earth and the quiet of the forest? If you believe that kindness and compassion can still bring warmth, even in the coldest rain, please subscribe and continue this journey with us. 2 days have passed, and LyTucam's little house remains still, wrapped in a heavy, suffocating heat. On the bamboo bed, she lies curled beneath a thin blanket. Her face is pale, her breath faint and uneven. Outside, even the cicadas have fallen silent. The whole forest holds its breath. The only sound, the soft whisper of wind through bamboo, like a sad melody in the afternoon air. Nam stands by the doorway, his eyes weighted with worry. He clenches his hands, unable to find calm. That woman, the one who had always stood strong against every hardship, now lies there, fragile and still, as if the mountain itself had lost its light. He calls softly, "Lytucam, wake up, have a little water," but there's no reply. Only her damp black hair and her faint, fading breath. Nam steps closer, dips a towel into cool water, and gently wipes her forehead. His hand trembles, not only from fear, but from a tenderness he can no longer hide. 2 days. She hasn't eaten a thing. The bowl of porridge he made sits cold on the bamboo table. He's thought of going to fetch a healer from the nearby village, but fear keeps his feet still. Fear that if he leaves, even for a moment, she might slip away before he returns. On his face lingers not just worry, but a quiet, unspoken affection that words could never carry. Nam looks up at the sky, heavy with clouds, and murmurs, "Hang in there, Lytucam. If the rain comes again, the path to the village will wash away." A single drop falls from the thatched roof, landing in his open palm, cold and heavy, like the weight of his heart. The narrow slope leading up to the bamboo hut was still slick with rain from the night before. The doctor climbed steadily, clutching her small medical bag, her breath quick in the cool mountain air. Her shift at the village clinic had just ended, but when she heard Ms. Lytucam on the hill has been burning with fever for 2 days, she had no time to rest, only threw on her white coat and set off at once. Nam was already waiting on the porch, his face caught between hope and fear. "Thank you, doctor," he said softly, his voice trembling. "I was afraid she might not make it." The doctor gave a quiet nod and stepped inside. The small hut smelled faintly of dried leaves and herbal smoke. Lytucam lay still on the bamboo bed, her skin pale, her breathing faint, barely visible. The doctor sat down beside her, opened her bag, and pulled out a stethoscope and thermometer. Her hands, accustomed to countless patients in the highlands, still trembled slightly as she touched Lytucam's burning forehead. The temperature was high, the pulse weak, signs of exhaustion and dehydration. She gently lifted the blanket, pressed the stethoscope to Lytucam's chest, and listened. A faint, uneven heartbeat echoed through the silence, fragile yet precious beyond measure. Then she wrapped the blood pressure cuff around Lytucam's thin arm. The needle wavered, then stilled. The doctor exhaled, her voice barely above a whisper. "She's lost too much fluid." Opening the IV bottle, she readied the syringe. The needle slipped gently into the skin, and clear drops began to fall. Slow, steady, catching the dim light that filtered through the bamboo wall. She sat quietly, watching every small change, her eyes steady, her movements careful. Her hand brushed against Tucam's forehead. A little cooler now. Outside, the wind rustled softly through the wet earth and distant streams. Inside that humble hut, there was only the faint breath of a sick woman and the quiet figure of a doctor, patient, compassionate, tending to her as though she were her own family. The doctor gently pulled the blanket up to cover Tucam, her eyes lingering on the woman's face, still lost in feverish dreams. Beads of sweat had begun to form on her forehead, a sign the medicine was finally taking effect. Letting out a quiet breath of relief, the doctor stepped outside where Nam sat waiting, worry written all over his face. A soft wind swept down from the forest, carrying the damp scent of soil. The air was still, heavy. Nam stood up the moment she appeared. "How is she?" he asked, his voice catching in his throat. The doctor lowered her mask, wiped a bit of sweat from her brow, and answered, her tone calm, yet full of gentle care. "She's not in immediate danger, but she's been burning with fever for 2 days. Her body is weak and dehydrated. I just gave her a shot to bring the fever down. For now, you only need to watch her closely." She paused for a moment, glancing toward the small bamboo hut, then added quietly, "If she doesn't improve within 2 days, you should try to get her to the hospital. They have proper equipment and medicine there. It'll be safer for her." Nam nodded slowly. He clasped his hands together, a deep helplessness welling up inside him. The doctor opened her bag again, pulled out a small slip of paper, scribbled down a few lines, and handed it to him. "These are for fever and rehydration. I didn't bring enough with me. Please go down to the town and get them as soon as you can." Before leaving, she looked once more at the modest hut, her voice softer now. "She's very weak. Stay by her side. Don't let her face this alone." Then she gave a polite nod and turned to leave, her footsteps fading along the narrow dirt path. Nam stood there silently, watching her disappear into the forest trail. And only the distant hum of cicadas remained, echoing through the quiet of the afternoon hills. Inside the small bamboo hut, the air was thick and heavy with heat. Nam sat beside the bed, gently resting his hand on Tucam's forehead, still burning hot. He remembered the doctor's words, echoing in his mind like a quiet flame that refused to fade. "Watch her closely for the next 2 days," she had said. But as he looked at the fragile woman before him, Nam wasn't sure Tucam could endure that long. He carefully pulled the blanket higher, wiping away a bead of sweat rolling down her pale cheek. Her breathing was shallow, uneven, as if every breath was a struggle. Nam glanced around. The room was bare. A few bowls, a jar of rainwater, a couple of withered sweet potatoes in the corner. He pressed his lips together, his chest tightening. If he left to buy the medicine, she might wake up alone. If he stayed, the medicine might come too late. After a moment's hesitation, he pulled out his phone and dialed a familiar number. From the other end came a warm, slightly raspy voice, that of Mr. Tien. "Nam, you sound worried. What's wrong?" Nam spoke quickly, his voice trembling. "Uncle, Tucam's gotten worse. The doctor said she needs more medicine, but I can't leave her like this. Could you help me get it?" Without a moment's pause, Mr. Tien replied, "Stay there and watch her. Send me the prescription. I'll go right now." A while later, the sound of a motorbike echoed through the forest wind. Mr. Tien arrived, carrying a small bag of medicine and a few fresh fruits. When he stepped inside, Nam's shoulders eased slightly. "Thank you, Uncle," he said, voice trembling. "The doctor said she's dehydrated, hasn't eaten in 2 days. Her fever's still high." Mr. Tien set the bag down, gazing at the sleeping woman with a sigh. "She's strong, stronger than most. But living out here alone, that kind of strength comes with pain." Nam nodded, his eyes glistening. "I just want her to get better. She's been through so much, and yet she's never stopped being kind." Mr. Tien placed a gentle hand on Nam's shoulder and spoke softly. "Sometimes, caring for others is the best way to keep ourselves human." Nam lowered his head, silent. Outside, the evening wind whispered through the bamboo walls, carrying the scent of earth and wild trees. Inside that humble hut, 2 men, one old, one young, sat quietly beside a woman fading in fever. Between them lingered a fragile hope, held together by nothing more and nothing less than human kindness. Mr. Tien placed the bag of medicine softly on the bamboo table, offered a few final words of advice, and rose to his feet. He said he needed to head to the hill to cut some bamboo before the wood transport left that afternoon. Nam nodded gratefully, his eyes still fixed on the small room inside, where Lytucam lay quietly beneath a thin blanket. Before leaving, Mr. Tien turned back, his voice low and sincere. "Stay here and look after her. If you need anything, just call me." Nam answered softly, "Thank you, Uncle." When the sound of the motorbike faded over the slope, silence returned to the small yard. Nam sat by the bed again, placing his hand on Lytucam's forehead, still warm, but no longer burning as it had been that morning. He let out a long breath, a little relief easing the heaviness in his chest. Looking at her pale face, his throat tightened with pity. Since the moment she had fallen ill, he hadn't dared to leave her side. As the afternoon light faded, he stepped outside to tend to the small garden in front of the house. The vegetable beds Lytucam had once cared for were now overgrown with weeds, the soil dry, the leaves yellowing. He picked up a small knife and began cutting bamboo for a new fence, working slowly, silently, thinking how she must have knelt here each morning, hands in the earth, planting hope in every green sprout. Now, as she lay weak inside, even the garden seemed to share her sadness. Nam pressed the bamboo stakes into the soil, measuring each row, then turned the earth, pulling out weeds, shaping neat, new furrows. His calloused hands were caked with mud, yet his eyes were calm, peaceful even. Every so often, he looked toward the small window, where the bamboo curtain swayed gently in the wind, as if he were still listening for the faint rhythm of her breathing inside. By the time the sun slipped behind the mountains, he sat down on the porch, wiping the sweat from his brow. The garden looked tidy again, the fresh soil soft and ready for new life. Nam smiled faintly to himself. "When she wakes up," he whispered, "she'll be happy to see this." Then he rose quietly, stepped inside, and replaced the cool towel on her forehead. In his heart was only one simple wish, that she would open her eyes soon, so that laughter might once again return to this little home.
Chúng ta vừa cùng nhau đi qua một hành trình nhỏ nhưng lại chất chứa thật nhiều cảm xúc, từ những nỗi buồn, những giọt nước mắt cho đến cả những khoảnh khắc bình yên, giản dị vô cùng quý giá. Cảm ơn bạn đã đồng hành và lắng nghe đến tận những giây phút cuối cùng. Mỗi một lượt xem, mỗi một ánh mắt dừng lại, mỗi một trái tim cùng đồng cảm đều là nguồn động lực để cho những câu chuyện như thế này được tiếp tục viết nên. Nếu cuộc sống còn bộn bề, đôi khi chỉ cần những giây phút lắng lại là sẽ nhận ra rằng niềm tin, lòng nhân ái và sự sẻ chia luôn có sức mạnh chữa lành kỳ diệu. Và cũng chính nhờ có bạn, người không ngại dành thời gian quý giá để đồng hành, và hành trình của nhân vật trong câu chuyện này trở nên trọn vẹn hơn, ấm áp hơn. Dù phía trước vẫn còn nhiều chông gai, nhưng chỉ cần trái tim con người biết hướng về nhau thì bóng tối nào cũng sẽ được soi sáng bởi một tia hy vọng. Xin gửi đến bạn lời cảm ơn chân thành nhất. Hẹn gặp lại các bạn trong các tập tiếp theo, nơi câu chuyện còn tiếp tục mở ra và những bước chân kiên cường, luôn mơ ước lặng lẽ và niềm tin chưa bao giờ tắt. Cảm ơn các bạn rất nhiều. Chúc các bạn luôn bình an.